Wife of 10 years cheated on me and got pregnant. She aborted because and wants to get back with me. Should I take her back? To be clear, I 34M haven't been the best husband to her 32F either. Since almost the first day of marriage I would get mad at her for minor things and yell at her or say things with an attitude sometimes, mostly without noticing. Unfortunately this went on for about 5 to 6 years. Within that time I was physically abusive to her a handful of times when I would lose my temper. Every time I would say that I was sorry and that I wouldn't do it again, but it would continue. The whole time she swore to love me with her whole heart, but I was slowly killing her love for me. Finally on year 7 I attempted to hit her but she blocked me. At that moment she realized enough was enough. She swore to divorce me but I told her I wouldn't let her. She cried for about 3 months straight, losing her mind because she could not comprehend how she could be over me and hate me even though she loved me so much. It was at that time that I realized my old internal methods of trying to stop me from abusing her would never work. It was then when I sought out therapy. It was only then when I gained the necessary emotional skills to control my emotions and not lose my temper that much and the physical abuse ceased completely. But it was too late. A few months later I realized that she deserved for me to give her the divorce. It was the most loving thing to do. I told her I would agree to divorce her. But she never took me up on the offer and just blamed me for not initiating the process. I loved her so much that I also decided that if she would stay I would take all of her verbal abuse and scorn until one day she could forgive me because I felt I deserved it. She would still explode on me for the smallest things but I would keep my calm as best as I could. Months later we went through with moving to a different city together and we bought a house in the new city. Something we had always been planning. However, before we left she told me she would start giving herself a chance with different men. So she started going out a lot and partying. As a matter of fact on year 6 she started being unfaithful and I caught her flirting over text with a bouncer she met. I cried for about 2 weeks straight. I tracked her phone and caught her outside the guy's apartment talking with her along with her friend. She still didn't change her attitude. She stopped talking to the guy after I cussed him out. However, between year 7 to 10 she had about 2 guys she had talked to romantically over phone and text, but she never moved out. Always eventually breaking up with them and me having to deal with her sad moods. Close to year 10 she started talking to a guy in the city we moved to when he reached out to her via social media. She was 100% convinced he was the one, just because of how he talked to her and the trauma they shared. She told me he was an ex-drug dealer and had tattoos all over and carried a gun all the time. But that he had left all that life behind him. Haha. I told her she was making a mistake and he was a bad person and only bad things would happen to her if she gave him a chance. She didn't listen and at that point moved out to an apartment. Long story short, their 2-month affair was, sure enough, full of manipulation, toxicity, controlling, and the most stressful life she's ever had. She was forced to have her every move tracked. During this time she became very close to his 9-year-old daughter. She would almost always spend nights over at his house but say she would sleep in the daughter's room every time. She would be partying with him almost 7 nights a week while trying to hold down a job. In the end, after him breaking up with her about 5 times within the span of 2 months she found out she was pregnant. I visited her at her apartment on our 10-year anniversary while she was pregnant with another man's child. We had so many plans for our 10-year. She missed out on so much. Even then I gave her a few gifts that I had bought before I knew she was pregnant. I wouldn't have gotten anything otherwise. I didn't want to give them to her but I would have felt like an Indian giver if I didn't. It was only then that she realized that it wouldn't work out with that piece of trash. She called me and told me she needed help. I never told her to get an abortion but she knew that if she didn't it would be the final straw for me because I never wanted kids and I'll be damned if I had to raise some scum of the earth's child. It wasn't after I helped her get the abortion that she realized I would be with her through thick and thin. I didn't pay for the procedure though. She apologized pretty sincerely about that relationship and for cheating and all the other relationships she's had. She said she really regrets hurting me. Shortly afterward she told me she wanted to try things again after 3+ years of disregard and emotional abuse trying to find her happiness. I held strong through it all but the fact she got pregnant was the ultimate sin against me in my book. She never had sex with any other man until she met this trash of a human. And I believe her on that. We literally saw him with another witch while my wife was pregnant, by the way. When she first confessed she was pregnant to me I asked her how many times they had sex and she said 2. Later, after the abortion, when I finally had courage to start talking to her about this very hurtful subject she said they only had sex once and that she was blacked out at the time and doesn't remember anything about that night. I don't know what to make of her changing her story from having sex 2 times to 1. I asked her how many times she blacked out with him and she told me a total of 2 nights but that other night she blacked out. She asked him if they had sex and he said no. The time they did have sex the next morning he right away told her they had sex. He also told her he wanted to get her pregnant because he wanted a family. This scumbag of a person probably planned it all out. He made sure to fuck her on her fertile days and make sure she was blacked out in the process. She had never wanted to be physical with any of the guys she's talked to, and I believe her. So if all of this is true, then she was technically roped because she was blacked out. If that was true, then that would make me an a-hole for hating her for getting roped. We have been getting couples therapy, but gaining trust in her again is hard. She is still really hurt from the pain I've caused her as well. However, slowly my love has gone from a 10% right after she told me she got pregnant to a present 30%. The pregnancy alone killed my love 60% for her instantly. So this brings us to the present day. She has told me she thinks he's a piece of trash and even gave him the nickname, Trash. However, she has always missed his daughter she became very close to over those 2 months. However, it's been about 6 months now since the breakup and abortion, and this trash requests her on social media and starts sending her messages again. At first for a week she ignored them and said she wasn't going to answer. But eventually she started saying there were some things she needed closure on. She also confessed she still had feelings for him, which I get, but also that the door is still open for him. After a week she came into the house crying uncontrollably. She said this trash called her and she answered, and he said that his daughter missed her a lot. He said he couldn't talk now but that he would call her back in a bit. She said she was crying so much because she felt sad that his daughter still missed her so much. She said she would answer when he called her back. I told her not to answer, but she said she didn't care. I told her in that case I would be present for the call, but she didn't want me to be there. I told her if she didn't have anything to hide to let me. She said she wouldn't feel comfortable if I was present. I told her I didn't want her talking to him and this would only push us apart, and she didn't care. After almost a whole hour talking to her ex, she said he just told her how much the daughter missed her and how he was so sorry about everything, blah blah blah. My wife told him it wasn't right for her to talk to the daughter without the mother's permission. She later told me it was really selfish of him to just unload his feelings on her just to make himself feel better and to get it off his chest. She said she didn't even want to ask anything for closure anymore at that point. I was fairly mad at her, but I would probably let it slide if it was a one-time thing. A few days later, he called her again. I told her not to call him back, she didn't care and said she would call him. So I told her, if she doesn't have anything to hide then record the call. Again she refused. I told her if she called him back then our relationship would probably never work and I would love her even less than I do now. She didn't give a shit and called him back. A little while later she came back in very excited saying the daughter wanted to FaceTime her. I told her I didn't care. This time she went into the next room as opposed to making the call from inside her car. At this point I got my stuff and started getting ready to leave to the gym. I couldn't be in the house anymore, I was so mad. She eventually ended the call and asked what I was doing. I told her I was leaving and I didn't want to talk with her at all until later that night. Once at the gym she texted me saying I didn't care about leaving her alone even though I know she has abandonment issues. I told her how am I supposed to care if she doesn't care about me? She says whether she stops talking to him or not is her business. I told her it's my business if she wants a relationship with me. Then she proceeds to attack my flaws. Is this relationship even worth fighting for anymore? Or am I finally on the cusp of finally gaining back the relationship that I always wished I had with her since day one? Or have I simply been a cuck this whole time? Or have I finally taken the punishment I deserved for the 5+ years of physical and mental abuse I inflicted on her? Am I overreacting about the no contact I want her to have with the ex? What is your read on this situation? Am I stupid or commendable?
Relevant comments. Commenter. You both are toxic. You had abused her physically and mentally, and she did it back to you mentally and emotionally. If you want to continue this relationship and work through it, go to marriage counseling. Work on your marriage as long as possible with a counselor. If you don't go, then just end it. Because there is a lot of issues that you both need to uncover and work through in order to get to the healthy stage of marriage.
OP. We have been going to couples therapy for the past 6 months. In those 6 months we've gone about 4 to 5 times. We have both continued individual therapy. She's gone about twice and I've gone once. Thank you everyone for your valuable input.